Greetings fellow guitar travellers, it's Rowan J Parker here once again with episode 2 of Rock Guitar Fundamentals. Now episode 2 is about that perennial bugbear and the most common problem I've ever encountered as a guitar teacher, and that is right hand alternate picking. It's by far and away the most common problem, and actually as well one of the hardest problems to fix. But hopefully by the end of watching this video, this lesson, if you do have an alternate picking problem, you'll be well on the way to fixing it and you'll be able to play a lot more fluidly and a lot quicker. Before we get into the lesson, I would like to encourage you to head on over to my website, which is www.rowanjparker.com, where there's a whole ton of guitar stuff, everything from total beginner to monster shred. Most of it is free, though there is a shop where you can buy things if you feel so inclined. You can check me out otherwise on social networks. I'm on Twitter at Rowan J Parker. I'm also on Facebook. I have a Facebook page which is Rowan J Parker, and I'm also on SoundCloud at Rowan-Parker, and also on YouTube, which you're watching right now, we hope. Okay, so let's get straight into the lesson, all about how to solve any of those pesky alternate picking problems you may have. So let's do it. Okay, so let's get into the lesson. Now I thought I would give the lesson on the acoustic guitar. So any examples I play are going to be on the acoustic, because when you play electric guitar it's all too easy to hide behind a big wall of distortion and pretend you sound awesome, where in reality you're not really playing particularly accurately. However, acoustic guitar is a great leveler, and if you're not playing accurately, well, you know, as you say, there's nowhere to hide, it's all too obvious. So all the examples can be done on the acoustic, alright? So let's start by thinking about why there are picking difficulties. Because the principle of pushing the plectrum backwards and forwards is hardly difficult. It can get a beginner to be able to do this. Admittedly they can't do it very fast or very evenly, but they can alternate. So it's not really the alternation that's the issue in and of itself. The problem with picking is what's called cross picking, where the plectrum has to change direction as it crosses over the strings. And there's two ways the plectrum can cross over a string. A plectrum can cross over a string from the outside or the inside. And as we get more into the lesson, I'll be explaining this very carefully. So these are really what causes the difficulties with alternate picking, not the actual act of alternation itself, but the crossing, the cross picking with the plectrum. Alright, so let's begin by looking at some simple things. Let's take a scale you will definitely know, which is A minor pentatonic. Now, very few students have a problem alternate picking the scale. Well, why is that? Well, the reason is that there's only two notes on each string. So if they start with a down pick, they're going to go down, up, and then they address the next string with a downstroke. Down, up, and then down, 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 down. And then they address the string with up. And so one of the fundamental reasons they don't find this difficult is because they're always crossing in the same direction that they're going physically, i.e. as they're ascending the scale and going towards the floor, the plectrum is always crossing with a downstroke, so their right hand is also going towards the floor, and as they're going descending down the scale, going towards the ceiling, then the right hand is always going towards the ceiling. And here is the number one technical problem that people have with alternate picking, and that is that they will want to do, or have a tendency to do, the same direction of stroke that they're doing physically. So if they're going towards the floor, i.e. ascending through a scale, they'll want to address each new string with a downstroke. And the same applies when they're descending, I beg your pardon. They want to address each new string with an upstroke, right? And that's not a problem in two note per string scales, because works out. That just so happens that's what the picking is going to be anyway. And it's really similar if they do, say, four notes on a string, they play chromatic. So once again, it just so happens that the picking works out that as a crossing, down, ascending through the scale, they're always addressing the string with a downstroke, and as they're descending, going towards the ceiling, they're addressing each string with an upstroke. So these things are never really a problem. The problems really arise when they have to do a different direction of stroke when they cross over, and this occurs whenever we have anything which is 3 notes on a string. So all the typical, very common modern 3 note per string scales all present this picking difficulty. So let me just demonstrate. If I play, say, A major, so we're going to start with a downstroke, down, up, down. Right, now think about what the next stroke should be and must be if we're going to alternate pick. It should be up. And this is the number one problem that students have. They go down, up, down, and then they feel they need to go to the next string, they must address it with down. Right, but the minute they do that, there's 2 downstrokes in a row. It's not alternate picking. And we're not talking about economy picking here, so it's not as if they're sweeping across the strings and getting some sort of, you know, major fluid sweeping thing going on. We're just talking about them doing 2 separate downstrokes. Down, up, down, down. Now, obviously, you just can't get that fluid or fast. Think about the analogy of a sprinter. A sprinter does not run left, right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left, because if he did, well, he wouldn't win the race, would he? He would be no Usain Bolt if he were to do that. So you've got to alternate the plectrum strokes. So this is the first thing you need to be conscious of, that you will need to go to the adjacent string with an upstroke. Down, up, down, up. And then as we continue, we'll have down, up, and the next string is addressed with down. So what that means is that every other string you play, you're going to be addressing that string with an upstroke, and this is the fundamental problem that a lot of players seem to have. So I'm just going to go ahead and give you a little exercise that you can practice to help you develop this cross picking. So if we take away the left hand difficulty and just use a nonsense pattern with the left hand, we can really focus on what the right hand's doing. So here's the left hand pattern, very simple. We're just going to go frets 5, 6 and 7, which is fingers 1, 2 and 3 across all 6 strings in a parallel exercise. This one. Okay, very simple exercise, should be quite obvious from the video what I'm doing. Let's really zoom in on the right hand now. Start with down, down, up, down, and then up on the adjacent. Up, down, 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 and you'll finish with down. So if you work on this exercise and pay really close attention to what the right hand's doing and slow it down as much as you need until you start to alternate properly, then once this becomes fluid and ingrained, you won't have to think about it at all. Actually, if you're a beginner and you do this from the beginning, you'll never have a problem. You'll learn to alternate pick fine. But if you're a guy who's been playing for quite some time and you've got one of these picking problems, one of these address problems, you're going to have a really, you're going to have to really work on to dismantle the technique you have and then try and reassemble a new technique, which could be, to be honest, a bit annoying and a bit frustrating, but it can be done, because I've had students come in with just these sorts of picking problems and they've really worked on it and they've got them down and they can alternate pick fine now. So that's the first exercise I've got for you. Let's look at a couple of other things we can show you to help you develop this cross picking. Okay, so let's focus on this cross picking issue that we're going to encounter when we alternate pick. So I referred to this briefly at the beginning, but what really is this cross? Well, let's take this example. This is a very common alternate picking lick which is shown to students to help develop alternate picking chops. Let's listen. Which is just 6 notes, and the 6 notes are D4, D5, D7, G4, only one note in the G string, then back to D7 and then D5. So 6 notes in total, and you loop this around and around. pretty simple. Let's look at the picking mechanics. Okay, we've got down, up, down, and then up on the adjacent string, then down, and then up, and then we start again with down. So let's focus on the string crossing. Down, and then up. So this cross. This is called an outside cross because the plectrum is on the outside edge of the string. Now, in terms of mechanics, it's actually easier to execute this cross, and the reason for that is this. When you do a downstroke on the D string, your plectrum is travelling downwards towards the next string you need to play, which is G. And then when you strike the G string with an upstroke, the direction of travel of the plectrum is now upwards towards the ceiling, towards the D string again. So in terms of motion, the amount of right hand motion is actually not that much. So this outside cross is usually not so hard to do once you get used to it. Alright, so if we play the lick starting with a downstroke, we'll always get an outside cross. So down, so hopefully you can see that the plectrum's crossing the string on the outside. If, however, we start the lick with an upstroke, we're going to get the reverse. So let's start with an upstroke. So we're going to go up, down, up, down, up, down. So in this case, when we cross D to G, we've got the other way around. So we're doing an upstroke on the D and then a downstroke on the G. And this motion is called inside cross. Now, unfortunately, this motion is quite a lot harder to execute cleanly for these reasons. When you do the upstroke on the D string, if you think about the direction of travel, the plectrum is travelling upwards, i.e. away from the string you need to play next. So you need to bring the plectrum down back to hit the G string, and it's now travelling downwards, which is again away from the direction of the string we need to hit next, which is D. So when you do this inside cross, it sort of feels like the plectrum is caught or trapped inside the string, and mostly it's a fairly uncomfortable feeling. And if there are problems with alternate picking, it's usually to do with an inside cross rather than the easier outside cross. If you don't believe me, just try this lick yourself. Start with down, see how that feels, and then start with up. And most players will very much dislike starting with up. It'll feel very odd and they'll want to start with down. Okay, some guys are awesome at this inside cross picking. For instance, guys like Steve Morse. And well, we'll just need to kill Steve because he's too good. But for the mortals amongst us, which includes me, we really have to work on this crossing to get it good. So I hope that's clear why certain things are easy to alternate pick and some things are, you know, difficult to alternate pick. What I suggest you do is practice both sorts of cross until you're at least fairly decent or adequate at both, and practice starting your licks or exercises with a downstroke sometimes and then also with an upstroke, and that way you'll get both flavours or both variations of cross, because you want to get it to the point that you can cross the string with whatever stroke is required to make it alternate, and it just adds a lot of fluidity and not to mention speed to your playing. Alright, we're just going to demo some of these ideas now, rattling up to a fair old tempo, and you can see how fluid it sounds with alternate picking. Alright, let's do that. Alright, just to show you how quick and how fluid you can get alternate picking, I'm just going to rattle up some of these exercises we showed you, and you can hopefully see, you know, we can get them to a fair old tempo and it'll sound particularly clean. Hopefully. Alright, so here is the metronome set at 160 beats a minute, and we'll start off with our chromatic exercise, which was our 1, 2, 3, 4 exercise. Alright, let's have a listen to that. Okay, sounds fairly fluid, I think. And let's move along to our 3-note per string A major scale and play that. Again, alternate picking. not bad. You can hear the articulation's pretty much spot on. And let's do one last one. We'll try pentatonic minor. Tricky because there's only 2 notes on a string. Okay, maybe not my finest hour, but I'm sure you get the idea. Okay, so you can see we can get these scales and exercises quite quick when we apply the alternate picking correctly. I'm going to talk about the next issue that players come across with alternate picking once they can actually alternate pick, and that is synchronization. Okay, well that wraps up this look at the fundamentals of alternate picking. I think I will save the synchronization material for next week's lesson, so that's what to expect then. I guarantee you that if you practice the exercises in this lesson and you're careful and observant in your own playing about alternate picking properly, it may take some time, from possibly a few weeks to several months, but if you're careful and you really do work on it, you will find that all your alternate picking problems will disappear and you'll be able to play a whole lot more fluidly and a lot quicker as well. So yeah, that's been it. It's been a blast doing this. It's always fun to share, you know, something about the craft of the guitar with other people. So that's it, and I'll see you next time for Rock Guitar Fundamentals. So I've been Round J Parker, and farewell!